Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Microsoft Spotlight podcast. I'm here with Andrew Price. No, he's changed his name. Andrew Moran. And Andrew, can you introduce us to the new guest and in a minute explain the name change?
Yeah, no problem. So I'd like to introduce our second Microsoft MVP to this podcast now. It's Layla Porter. She works in the UK. Layla, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, thank you for having me on the show. I guess, yes, you hit one point. I'm a Microsoft MVP for developer technologies. I am a GitHub star, whatever one of those is. That's quite a new award program from GitHub. I sit on the board of directors for the .NET Foundation, and I work in developer relations. So that's kind of me.
So yeah, I'm gonna quickly obviously address the elephant in the room. So my name has changed recently, and that's generally because I was meant to get married last year, but because of COVID, that didn't happen. I was basically taking my partner's name, which obviously isn't normal for a male to do so, but I don't like my actual personal family, so I actually decided to take my partner's name. And because of things in her family, she basically lost her brother to mental health. He took his own life and didn't want to basically change her name, so I ended up changing mine just to, keep my partner happy and keep her name going. So yeah.
Well, congratulations on your nuptials, and a sad story, and I'm sorry for her loss, but lovely that you can help honour the memory and keep the family name going.
Yeah, and so once I've changed my name and changed it again, it's an absolute nightmare. I didn't realise how terrible it is to actually go through all the detail and how much it costs, but hey, it's part of what I wanted to do. So getting back onto obviously yourself, Layla. Obviously you are a Microsoft MVP. So tell us a bit more about what you're doing currently at the moment.
Well, I've been unemployed for the past 2.5 months. So I've been doing a lot of reading, crafting. I did some streaming. And a hell of a lot of interviewing, which is very, very draining and tedious. But that is all at an end. So I start my new role on Monday. So that will, by the time this goes live, I guess I'll have been in my role for some time. And I'm joining the developer advocacy team at VMware Tanzu on Monday, which I'm very excited about. So yes, that's kind of what I'm hoping to be doing at the moment. I've been stationery shopping.
Exciting times.
Oh yes, the exciting times that we live in, that one gets excited over buying stationery.
That's all good. So do you want to explain to us what you actually do within your job role? Because I mean, from mine and John's perspective, we don't touch any kind of developer stuff whatsoever, so it's probably going to go over straight over our heads. But if you want to explain what you do to the audience.
Sure. So developer relations is quite an odd field, and lots of companies employ this kind of advocacy, and I call it underhand marketing. So basically, you have people such as me who go out, and our jobs are to speak at conferences, write technical content, make demos, workshops, and all sorts of content that may use the company that we work for, their technology. It may not. It may just be stuff that is interesting to the community that we are in. And by virtue of that, it helps to raise the profile of the company that we work for and make people interested. It's like, oh, they see me speak at a conference and they go, oh, well, I enjoyed that talk. Well, where does Layla work? Oh, and they see where I work, and then they might go and investigate that company that I work for. And that's kind of how it works.
So a front line as such job. You'll very much become a face of the company.
Yes, to some extent. It depends on the program that you're in. Lots of developer relations teams operate in different ways. So true advocacy would be maybe going out into the community, working with forums, Stack Overflow, and gathering information from users of a product and feeding that back into the company to try and improve the product. If you've got evangelism, you have, these are the two extremes. So evangelism would be going out and outwardly talking about the company and the products, and maybe going to conferences and being on booths and not really bringing the feedback in. They're purely outward going, and advocates at the extreme end would be ingoing. And then you've got everything in between and all the crossovers, and that can be education. So you've got educators, which would be working on the docs and workshops, and all sorts of things like that. So it's quite a broad spectrum. Quite often sits under marketing, but can sit in engineering or product. So yeah, it's very varied depending on where you do it.
So outside of your day-to-day job, and you kind of mentioned it just off air before we started, you've done a lot of streaming in the past. You haven't done recently. I think that's brilliant. Like personally, like you don't really see in the tech community a lot of people going out and streaming and being an advocate for their technology on Twitch. I'm very much like a gamer, so like I use Twitch like every day, but to see that cross marketing and cross pollination to Twitch is really good. Like, do you want to just talk to us about the streaming, kind of how it started, what your ideas were, and how you done that?
Sure. I started streaming code in late 2019 in the autumn, and I saw it as a way to keep my skills current. Skills can go rusty when you work in developer relations because you're not working on an engineering team. You're not coding every day unless you make yourself code every day. And I used it as a way to stay current and learn the new things. I don't know. I could be constantly learning the way that code and programming and technology changes by the minute, let alone the day. So it was a way for me to keep learning, which I love, and teach, because I've been a teacher all my life. I love sharing knowledge and learning from people, and just that knowledge share is one of my favorite things to do. And Twitch was a platform that I could do that on. And when we all went into lockdown for the pandemic, it became a really great way to get out in the community and keep connected, keep learning. I actually got really into the streaming to help build a workshop that I was working on, a video workshop. So I was developing the application on Twitch and learning what people wanted to know from it and what things I needed to cover. And then when I wasn't streaming, I was actually creating the workshop and recording videos, and again and again and again, and recording again and again and again. And that's the thing about actual video recording, is it's so hard and you have to do it so many times. Whereas streaming, if I make a mistake, it's like, oh, well, let's just go and correct that then. And I don't have to do it again and again because I fudged some words or typed incorrectly on the keyboard or just did something really stupid, or the doorbell rang or whatever,
It's more human as well, more human approach to things, because
it is.
You can literally be like a robot trying to sit there and record things and trying to get it perfect, but then having that general conversation like you would over like a water cooler, for example, they always come across better. That's how I've ever approached like a conference or a user group. It's just trying to be as open and free flowing as possible. Yes, people do make mistakes. People do.
Well, you've got interaction with Twitch, haven't you? You've got interaction. You've got the viewers. You've got lots of different things that you can do with Twitch. So it's a lot. A video, you always want to be polished 100%, as you just said, Layla. So it's I thought it was a really good way to do it, and I think kind of one of the things that highlighted us to you, especially to come onto the podcast, was some of the comments that you were getting in the chat room and stuff like that. How have you kind of like had to deal with trolls and stuff like that within Twitch?
I've been quite fortunate, really. The trolling I have had on any platform has been quite minimal, as opposed to some other women, well, not just women, people in tech who seem to get a lot more trolling. So I've been very fortunate. I try to turn it into like an educational stance, I guess, or a teaching moment. If someone comes on and they say something that's not, if it's like really inappropriate, it's a ban. But if it's kind of misguided, it's slightly old-fashioned, slightly sexist or something, then I'll turn that into like, why do you feel that you want to say that? Why do you want to bring that point of view onto it? And then I get people to think about what they say and then say why that might not be a good thing to make a community inclusive. And chat gets involved and we try and make it a teaching moment. And we've had some success with that. I know some people are just insta-banned, but that doesn't help people learn. That just makes them go away feeling a bit like, oh, well, that's, well, they're stuck up, and they think it's them, the streamer, not them, the viewer.
And some people get a kick out of it as well. That's the problem.
Oh, they do. You do get that, and they're the ones that you time out and then you ban. You'll get questions like, I had someone come on the stream and was like, "What's your favorite subject at school?" I was like, "Mathematics." And then they're like, "What part of mathematics?" I'm like, "How is this relevant?" And they're like, "Well, I'm really interested in mathematics." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that's not relevant." And then they're like, why didn't you do it? Why aren't you doing it now? And I'm like, this is not relevant. You are trolling. They're like, I'm not trolling. I said, you are. This isn't relevant to this. Take this away. Shut up, or I'm going to time you out again. And in the end, I just blocked them because people get a kick out of coming in and actually disrupting a stream,
Just
throwing
ruining it,
people. Yeah, they just get, that's their kicks, and so be it. They can go somewhere else and do that.
The world shouldn't be like that. And as I've mentioned many times over, and one of the reasons why we started the podcast is because of comments I saw that you posted over Twitter, and that's why I reached out to you. And the world as it is generally, with our whole like Black Lives Matter and bullying and everything else that people are having issues with. So yeah, I'm glad obviously you're able to deal with it in such a way that you're educating people for it, because people need that education. It's not acceptable, and obviously the more people that are out there taking a stance against it, then hopefully we're never going to fully eradicate it, but if we can educate at least one person, then you're doing the right thing.
Yes, absolutely. You'll always get really horrible trolls, and they can throw you. I know some fellow streamers, it really ruins their whole stream. It really just throws them out. I think years of being in sort of the public eye, being in developer relations, I've developed quite the thick skin over the years, and I have a great ability to ignore them and not address them, and I just delete them. All my moderators on stream will delete them and get rid of them. And something that was drummed into me when I first got into developer relations was don't feed the trolls. So don't rise to them. That's what they want. Don't react. So I don't even look at them. I don't respond. I just delete, ban, be done with it, and I don't draw any attention to it, because that's what they want. They want that reaction. They want to see you trip. And over the years I've just been like, people are going to do it. It's not personal to me, so just don't even rise to it. But that takes.
Do you feel from having the trolls you've basically developed a thick skin because of it?
Yeah, absolutely. You just have to know that most often it's not personal. It's not an attack on me as a person. It's seeing that I'm on Twitch, I'm a woman, I'm streaming about coding or whatever that they pick up on, and then just throwing that back at you in some twisted way, because that's how they get their kicks. And it happens to everyone. It's not picked out for me on purpose. And I think knowing that, I'm able to just forget it and move on and not give them the time of day. It's not a personal thing. It's not someone coming up to me in the street and abusing me in the street, slapping me, or whatever, spitting on my face, whatever horrible things happen. It's online. It's some anonymous sad little individual that needs to put other people down, or get a kick out, who gets their kicks because they don't have anything else going on by getting into an argument. And that's the other thing. It won't always be abusive. It will be controversial, and they'll try and get a rise out of you to get into a heated argument or to get you flustered. And it's recognizing the people that are trying to do that, and also training your moderators to recognize that and to deal appropriately with it. So my moderation team have like the idea that we give people a little breathing room. If they come in and say something, we'll be like, is that something to be concerned about? And they'll watch them. And then if they keep doing it, they'll time them out. And if they come back after the timeout and they're still misbehaving, they get a ban. So we have this sort of let them go, but they've got a little flag, and then my moderators start paying more attention to them, or I start paying more attention to them, because we know that they're going to come in and say something stupid and inflammatory.
So you've obviously built your brand, LaylaCodesIT, and you've done really well. You built your community, you built your moderators up. What you said, you haven't streamed for a while now. So what's next going forward with it?
Oh, I'll start streaming again. It's just I've been in so many interviews and prepping for so many interviews in the past like 6 weeks that I can't do everything. And I just needed to take a break. Streaming is quite demanding, and interviewing is incredibly demanding and draining. So I was just trying to be kind to myself and take a little break. And streaming doesn't pay my bills, so that has to take a secondary position for getting a new job. So I just put that on hold for a little bit whilst I gave my all to interviewing and trying to decide where I wanted to go for my next move. And once my onboarding is over, so I guess that's going to be 1 or 2 weeks, I'll be picking up my streaming again. So
Layla's back.
It'll be Layla's back. My community knows that it's just a holiday. I have a Discord, and just telling people in there, just that I've been taking a break just while I go through the interviews, and they're very important to get the right job, and I don't like to change job that often. So I just needed to give myself the breathing room to be properly prepared and fresh for interviews. So yeah, there's only a temporary hiatus.
Cool. So if we completely step back and go back to your very beginnings, how did what was you doing before IT, and then how did you get into the world of tech and get into the position you're in today?
I've done a whole host of things, to be honest. So immediately before I moved into tech, I ran my own Pilates studio. So I was an advanced Pilates teacher, sports massage therapist, biomechanics coach, and pain specialist. So I worked with people predominantly with injuries, so back and nerve damage, to help them manage their pain. So it would be people who went so serious that they would be in hospital care or qualify for lots of physiotherapy. They'd be having physiotherapy, and their doctors would have said, or their physiotherapists would have said, you need to do Pilates to help strengthen your core and protect your back. So they'd come and work with me, and then I would work on how they can manage their pain through movement and also strengthen so they can prevent future injury. So I did that. I had an online booking system, and that's how I got into coding, was through that.
So I was going to ask that question. So how do you go from, being in that particular role into the world of IT? Every guest we've spoken to, it's not an easy transition.
I guess it goes back to even earlier than that. So I originally went to university after school, like a lot of people do. And my first year was maths and physics and astrophysics, so it was quite hardcore. And then I switched course to straight up mathematics. And then the second year of that degree, so my third year at university, I lost my funding. So I was a foreign student in the UK, so I didn't qualify for any government assistance or anything like that. So there was no way I could continue my studies. So I dropped out, and I went and worked in bookshops and retail, and was a manager of a body shop. And then I went in to be an office manager, and then I got into marketing, and then I was a marketing manager. And then it was whilst I was doing marketing managing that I got into graphic design. And I then went back to college and did a year of graphic design, but I didn't get on with the head of the course. So I left after that because I had the opportunity to go and ride horses full time. So I did that. But while I was doing that, I actually started to play around with Flash and ActionScript because it was fun. And my partner is a web developer. He did classic ASP, and then he started to learn ASP.NET, and he was teaching me C# around this time as well. So I started just to play around with code, and I was learning CSS and HTML, and just messing around with it. And then when I was riding horses in the day, and then in the afternoons I'd play around with some like Objective-C, learning how to do iPod development and iPhone development really early on. And then I just always dabbled with it, and I was doing stuff with him. And then I started to create my own websites when I was coaching people on their horses. So I had just a website that I built for helping to get business into my dressage coaching. And then I started to learn Pilates because a lot of my horse riding customers wanted to do Pilates. And I thought, well, I could teach them Pilates off the horses and on the horses. So I did. I started to learn Pilates, and then I moved fully over into Pilates. I sold my horses, opened up a studio, and then I'd been doing all these websites, and I decided that I wanted an online booking system. So my partner built that, and then I did all the front-endy stuff of that. So he built that in MVC. So I just did all the CSS and HTML and that, and then he showed me some of the backend code, and that was that. And I was like, I need this new thing to look at my customers who are doing X, Y, and Z. And he's like, okay, I'm going to show you how to do entity framework then, and how to write proper searches. So, and he taught me SQL, which terrified me. He jumped like the fear of God into me. Yeah, he's like, this is it. You really have to be careful. You do not want to drop your database. So I am like, still to this day terrified of dealing with anything in SQL. So I started to learn how to code with that, and I thought I really enjoyed this, and I was just dabbling with it. And then I listened to a podcast from Code Newbie about, I think it was Ali Spittle, how she moved from journalism into coding. And I was like, oh, you can do career changes like that? And I was competing, my Pilates studio is competing against all of the these 24-hour gyms that are like £12 a month, and they do have gym classes, and people are like, why are we paying you £12 a class, Layla, when we can get it all in at the gym? And I'm like, well, you're not going to have a specialist like me. There's going to be a class of 50 people with an instructor at the front lying on a mat. They're not going to be classes of 10 with hands-on correction that I do. But it was really hard, and a competing Pilates studio that also was a teacher training banned all of their teachers from coming to teach for me. There was a bit of a spit and spat over that. And so I couldn't get any teachers. I couldn't grow my business. And I thought, why am I killing myself here when I could change career? So I knuckled down and really studied every day. And then I got my first job at a small web development company as a C# developer, and that was that.
Well, that's very rude. It's definitely a new path that we haven't heard before. We've heard quite a few different ones, and that's we've had horses involved in other ones. But yeah, that's quite a journey that you've been on.
Yeah.
and I'm right to say you've been in the IT industry. I know you've been doing stuff but for 5 years now.
I started in 2016, so yeah, I guess that's 5 years, isn't it? I don't know.
That's an astronomical rise from starting in IT 5 years ago to kind of what you are now, Microsoft MVP, GitHub Star, and everything else that you've achieved. That's incredible.
Well, thank you.
I know how hard it is to become an MVP, and obviously in 5 years' time, from literally starting the actual IT market full time, doing all the community stuff as well on top of that, and obviously getting yourself, up to speed with all your job roles and you're streaming, then, that's a massive uptake in, 5 years to achieve what you've achieved, definitely.
I am quite a sponge. I am fortunate that I can absorb knowledge quite well. So when I got that first IT job, I wasn't afraid to keep moving jobs. So I stayed at that one for 6 months, and then I went to another place that was a junior developer, and I changed and got a mid-level developer. I only stayed there 4 months because they were like, I knew that their processes went right. They didn't know what build they were on. They were dragging and dropping stuff onto the server, and I was like, I can't stay here. So I left there.
Anxiety, was it?
It was terrible, and I was trying to educate all of them on how to use Git, and I'm like, I've only been in this business for 6 months, and I have a better idea of how to look after code than they do. So I was like, right, okay. So I then moved on to be quite a hardcore software engineer in my next role, working in telecommunications. So I moved over to there in late 2016, so November. So I'd been in the business 10 months. I moved in to be a senior level, I guess, sort of mid to senior level software engineer working on a telecommunications cloud platform, which I loved. I really enjoyed that. But there were processes that I didn't like there, and I wanted to move to somewhere that had better process with, test-driven development or, actual testing and things like that. So then I started looking at senior developer jobs in 2017, and I took one on as a senior developer, which I started in 2018. So January 2018, I moved to there. So that was quite good for 2 years to actually having the title of senior developer. Mm-hmm. And I was only there for 3 months before Twilio approached me and asked if I would consider moving into developer relations. And once I actually found out what that was, I was like, okay then. So I shifted over to that because I had been speaking at meetups all that time that I'd been learning. Before I got my first job, so back in 2015, I joined the local JavaScript meetup. We didn't have a C# meetup then or a .NET meetup. That started in 2016, and I joined that and started to speak at that. So yeah, I just always kept my finger in the community right from before I even got my first job, which I think helped me where I am now.
So you've really all the way through.
So where is your meetup that you basically run today?
It's in Milton Keynes. It's called mk.net, and it's part of the .NET Foundation. And I've been running that since 2017. So
how did you find it with obviously COVID? Have you managed to continue to run it virtually, or
yeah,
part of streaming?
I didn't have that many meetups until we sort of found a rhythm, because I didn't actually enjoy the virtual meetups, to be honest, because a big part of why I do the community meetups is to build community in the local area, and I think some of that was lost virtual. And there was this whole sort of expectation that all of the meetups, say in the UK, should coordinate their days and make sure that they're not crossing over, so that people from all over the world can, do a different meetup every day. And oh no, well, you can't have that person doing 2, meetups in a row. And I was like, no, this is for my local community, the people that come to Milton Keynes. I open it up to the general public. If you want to come and you're in a different part of the world or the country, that's fine. But this is specifically done for my community, and it's on this day, and it always has been on this day. And I don't record them because I think YouTube is saturated with too many conference talks, all the same ones. Every meetup's recording it and putting it live. And as a speaker, that's not great because your content is being spread and distributed everywhere. And then conferences don't want you because they're like, well, it's like there's 30 YouTube videos of this same talk that you've done at all these meetups. And so I try not to get mine recorded too much. And I don't record any speakers' videos because I want people to be there. I want them to come and be a part of the community and actually turn up and say hello and not just be a consumer. They can go and get go watch a recording on YouTube from some other meetup if they want that. They don't have to come to mine.
Yeah, I mean, I know quite a few like in-person conferences that are going to be happening where basically part of the agreement with the speaker is that the content they're delivering is unique and hasn't been basically delivered elsewhere.
Exactly. And so this is a problem that a lot of speakers are going to have to come up against, is that they've been speaking at all these virtual meetups and virtual conferences, and that's all being distributed over YouTube. And so your content, and I mean, conference talks take so much to create and refine. And if conferences are like, well, I'm sorry, but the 20 meetups that you attended to refine this talk have all put it on YouTube, we don't want it. Sorry. So this is it. So I don't actually let people record my talks when I go to meetups now either, because it's like, come and attend live.
Yeah, I do think with the meetups, like the whole point of it is, I think the talks and the tech come second.
Yes,
because
I agree.
It's about meeting other people, about talking amongst yourselves. You don't get that in the chat room.
Networking, 100% all about networking.
Yeah.
I've got jobs through networking at user groups I've run in the past. I've built friendships, relationships with people that I've never met before, and then obviously I've carried them forward into other roles and ended up working with them people as well. So yeah, obviously the people are there to obviously learn as well, but obviously the actual community and getting involved and networking with people that sometimes be able to help you out with a quick question. That's what a meetup's all about.
Agreed, 100%. I'm trying a new platform as well, rather than Zoom, called AirMeet, which has like conference tables on it. So you can go and split off into small groups and hop from table to table and have chats with people. And that seems to be working quite well. And that's free to use as well, up to 100 participants, just to try and get some of that community feel back. It's been quite nice. So yeah, I've just been trying to do different things to try and bring back that community and networking feel. Not everyone buys into it, but I'm not here, in the community I build, the group I build is not here to serve random strangers all over the world. It's for this community that wants to be involved and network and talk and chat and laugh and be friends.
So I've got a question for you. Obviously, you've gone from doing your past stuff before IT to obviously in the world of IT now. What would you suggest to another woman that's basically maybe in your position or was in your position, starting out in coding? What would you advise them to do, and how basically to get them, probably on the same path as you, probably not as accelerated as yours because you've completely skyrocketed, but how so they can start basically building their career in coding?
I think have a look around your local area and see, what jobs are there, what type of software development is there, so that you know that the skills you're building are applicable to your local area. I know remote work is big now, but maybe they don't want to be remote or they're not sure where to go. And then start learning that. It doesn't matter what language you learn, as long as you can apply it and use it. I think having a portfolio was huge for me. So I made sure that I had a lot of silly little projects on GitHub that I could show, and other little websites that I just stood up. We're lucky now that there's so many free services just to stand up websites, and between Azure and AWS and Netlify, there's so many different places where you can host something for free. So you can literally put those on your portfolio or have a portfolio site, and people can go and have a look at your work and see your code and start to see what you've done. I think it's really good to go and get involved in communities, because you can talk to people. You might get a job through that because people meet you and they might say, oh yeah, we're looking for a junior developer, and they like you and they think, yeah, okay, well, let me refer you in, which is a much better way to go rather than recruiters. I did make friends with a recruiter, which is how I got my first job. I spoke to him and I was like, look, I know I'm a bit of a weird one. And he was like, I'm gonna talk around some of my contacts And so he said he found the agency I joined, and they were willing to take a punt on me. They paid me peanuts. And said, well, if you don't work out coding, you can be our office manager. I was like, all right, then. I don't care as long as I'm in the door. And I think it's all about getting that first job. So if you have to do like split job, like this goes to anyone, not just women. If you haven't got a degree and you're trying to change into tech, take whatever it is. Obviously, as long as you can survive on the pay. So I got minimum wage, and I went in and had a complete meltdown on the day. And then the owner sat with me and was like, it's okay, we can just code through this. So you want to find someone who's happy to work with you and help you and encourage you. And I was lucky enough to have that. I could have got another job, which was more SEO based, that would have paid twice what this one was, but there was no learning opportunity. So think about what you want to get out of that first role and choose it based on that, rather than, oh my God, this one's going to pay me £10,000 more, but it may not be the right role for you. And those early ones, you only have to stay there 3 months, because it's nothing like coding 8 hours a day, 7 hours a week to get 5 days a week. God, I hope no one's doing that 7 days a week.
That's a long week.
It's a very long week. I hope, there's nothing like doing that for a couple of months to really accelerate your skills and keep learning on the side. And then you can jump ship. And I think that's perfectly acceptable in technology and software development, that people move jobs often. It's a real accepted practice, in my opinion. So don't be afraid to do that. Just get that first job.
From the outside in, you are a bit of a risk taker. You're willing to take risks and jump out of your comfort zone and shoot higher.
Do you think? I think I'm quite stoic and quite a safe
the fact that something that you're willing to jump jobs from 6 months to says that is a risky thing to do. You see, like you could have sat in your first job as a junior developer for years. Not everyone's willing to take a risk to jump off and accelerate their career.
I guess I look at it. What's the risk? I'll get to another job if I don't like that one.
Just weighing the risks and benefits. I mean, so I've moved around quite a bit in my career, and I'll say some of them steps have been forward and some have been backwards.
Yeah.
But you have to take that risk sometimes to obviously get into the position that you're in.
I guess it comes down to personal circumstances as well, that you have to be able to afford to take a risk. So I had a partner who was in work. So that helped. And I just knew that I wanted to accelerate down this path, and I didn't want to be stuck. I'm never satisfied. I always want to progress and grow, and I wasn't going to grow any further there. So I was like, right, time for the next challenge, time to step it up a gear. So I went on somewhere else and I doubled my money, which was really welcome. And then I was like, it's acknowledging that this isn't right either, and moving again. And I think with my Pilates studio, I could see that wasn't growing. And life is too short. We spend too much time working. And I think you can't just sit and stay in something that is okay. Yeah. And you need to just, if you're that way inclined as I am, and you want more from life, and you're not willing to just settle down into it for years, then you have to just push forward and acknowledge that maybe there'll be a good decision and maybe there won't. I mean, I've had that recently. I left Twilio and went to a startup, and that wasn't the right move for me. So I stayed there 7 weeks and I left. Luckily, I was in the privileged position to be able to take the last 2.5 months not working and find a job, and I couldn't be happier with my new job. So I think my partner calls it a war chest. Always have a war chest, because you can be made redundant tomorrow. So if you are able to squirrel away some money that you can float yourself for a little bit, I think that's, if you want to do the job hopping like I've done, you can have a safety net in case something really is terrible and it doesn't work out and you need to leave. So, I mean, not everyone is in that position. So it's really on personal circumstances if you're able to squirrel away that money or not, to be able to take those risks. To me, they weren't risks. They were just, yeah, that's a good move.
Stepping
Let's try it.
stones.
Yeah.
A strategic stepping stone.
Yeah.
So
talk-
obviously you got your go on.
Go on, you do it, John.
So obviously you start your new job Monday. But what's the future for Layla? What's the pinnacle in your career?
Oh, I don't know. I always change my job, so like my career is so often in the past. I do really love developer relations. I love the variety of it.
Probably a scientist somewhere down the line or something completely different.
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm hoping to get a master's. So I've applied for a master's degree, so hopefully I'll get accepted to that. So I can do that and actually have a qualification. That would be nice. And I don't know. I've led people before, so maybe I could go on and be a team lead. I'm happy to look after people. I'm happy to work by myself in a team. I don't know. It could be like I go more into marketing because I've done a lot of marketing, or I go more into engineering. It could be I leave the industry altogether and become a property magnate. Who knows?
Awesome. I mean, normally I ask like an interview question at the end of most episodes, but I think since you've been interviewing for the last 2.5 months, I'm going to skip that one for you. Save the grief. I have to say, it's been obviously very interesting, obviously hearing your story. I mean, it's not what I expected. I was actually talking to Claire Smith about you because I'm actually going through the whole MVP renomination process, and said my next call is obviously with you, and she's like, yeah, you'll enjoy speaking to Layla. She's got a great story, and she was very much correct on that front.
Awesome. So yeah, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It seems weird sometimes to think that I've had all these careers and done all these different things, but I think it's really helped me in my position now. I can talk to anybody. Maybe that's helped me with my thick skin as well. Just dealing with different people all the time, and just rolling with the punches, I guess, and not afraid to. I guess one thing I've really learned is if something isn't working, cut your losses and move on. And that was something I've really embraced over the past decade, I guess. If something isn't working, don't cry over it. Don't hold on to it. Just get rid of it, move forward.
I think that's a really good place to end today's episode. So thank you, Layla, for joining us on the Microsoft Spotlight podcast. And we'd like to again thank our sponsors, BitTyson, for us being here today. See you later. Goodbye.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Microsoft Spotlight podcast. Please make sure you hit that like, share and subscribe button to help us promote our message. You can also follow us on Twitter at MSFT Spotlight, and we're also on LinkedIn, the Microsoft Spotlight podcast. And finally, we'd like to tell you a little bit about BitTyson and thank them for sponsoring this podcast.
Remote migrations start here. Let Migration Wiz do the work for you. It's fast, secure, and 100% SaaS, which means you can migrate at any time and from anywhere. Migrate mailboxes, documents, public folders, personal archives, or even Microsoft Teams with just a few clicks. No special training needed and no customer downtime. When the work matters, choose Migration Wiz.